Hare Krishna. Welcome you once again to Gita Diploma course. Today is our second day. We started it yesterday. And I hope all of you, those who participated in the event yesterday or watched the recording, were very happy that you joined this course. We'll begin today's session also with a short prayer. Please do participate with me. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I'm very excited. Today we'll begin chapter 1 of Bhagavad Gita. Yesterday, as I explained to all of you, Bhagavad Gita is a love letter of Lord Krishna to not just Arjuna, but to each one of us. Bhagavad Gita is a manual of life. Bhagavad Gita is like our mother. Bhagavad Gita is a living book. Bhagavad Gita can become our companion, our guide, our well-wisher. So much to learn from this book. This book has 18 chapters, and now from today, in coming 18 sessions, in each session, we are going to cover one chapter. We'll start with chapter 1 today. It's a very, very important chapter because it sets up the background, the foundation for us to understand the entire Bhagavad Gita. If you remember, yesterday we mentioned Bhagavad Gita is a part of a greater scripture known as Mahabharata. Mahabharata is the story of greater India. So today, to all of you, I'm going to very quickly tell the story of how this situation aroused that brothers belonging to the same family were standing on the battlefield to fight with each other. If you remember from yesterday, we did mention that you must be taking notes while you are attending the sessions. The recordings will always be available. I hope you have started doing the quizzes and you got the result also of how much you could score in the first quiz. Mahabharata, you might have seen this serial on television or might have read this book. In India, there's hardly anyone who has not heard the name Mahabharata. How it begins is actually thousands of years ago, the whole planet was known as Bharatvarsha. Yes, the whole planet. And there was one emperor ruling over the whole planet. Mahabharata also means the greater India. If you know, just 100 years ago, India was much bigger than what it is at the present. During the times of Mahabharata, India in the western horizon was stretching up to Afghanistan and Turkey, and the eastern horizon was stretching up to Myanmar, Malaysia. That much big was India or Bharata. So there was a king whose name was Bharat. He was the son of Maharaj Dushyanta. And on his name, this land got the name Bharata. In that dynasty, a long time later, was born a king whose name was Kuru. You can see on the chart on the screen. From the name Kuru came the name Kurukshetra, the land of Kuru. So from Kuru started this dynasty in which a prince was born who later on became the king, and his name was Shantanu. Yes. Shantanu was a very, very valiant king, a good emperor. And once he got attracted to Ganga Devi, so he wanted to get married to Ganga. He proposed to her. She agreed on a condition. We don't have time to tell you the whole story of Mahabharata, but it's very interesting. So she agreed to get married to Shantanu, but she told Shantanu that you cannot stop me from doing whatever I like to do. Even if you find I'm doing something wrong, you just have to keep quiet. Shantanu somehow they agreed for this condition. So they spent some time together, some years, and later on, uh, when Ganga was taking her eighth son and throwing into the river, which means itself, Shantanu Maharaj could not bear that. Earlier, he allowed the previous seven sons to be killed in this manner, but for this eighth son, he could not allow. So he stopped Ganga, and at that time, Ganga left him. Now, our first question for today, for all of you, our dear audiences, who is that son of Shantanu and Ganga, mm, whom Shantanu Maharaj did not allow Ganga to throw into the river? Let's see what answer you have for us. It's a pretty simple question. Of course, for that you must know Mahabharata story. Oh yes, thank you so much. You know the answer. So the answer is Bhishma, also known as Devavrata. So Bhishma was born. Bhishma is a very famous character in Mahabharata. Later on, his father Shantanu got married to another lady whose name was Satyavati. And from Satyavati, he gave birth to two sons whose names were Chitrangada and Vichitravirya. Chitrangada died at an early age due to some disease, and Vichitravirya was then later on, married to two princes whose name were Ambika and Ambalika. I'm cutting short the story because we are not talking about Mahabharata in this course. So then, somehow, by some arrangement, Ambika gave birth to a son who was born blind, and his name was Dhritarashtra. And then Ambalika gave birth to also a son whose name was, that's for you to answer. What was the name of, what was the name of Ambalika? I'm sorry, by mistake, some other showed the answer to you. Okay, thank you so much. It's Pandu, yes. So Pandu was born. Pandu was younger, Dhritarashtra was older. Dhritarashtra, because he was born blind, he did not qualify to become the next king. He was physically very strong, but he had this one disqualification that he was born blind. So he could not ascend to the throne, and Pandu Maharaj was made the king. But Pandu was a very sensitive person. He knew that his brother Dhritarashtra, right from the childhood, wanted to become the king, and he was so attached to the royal throne. So Pandu, he decided, let my elder brother sit on the throne. I'll do the work of a king. I'll not stay much in the kingdom. I'll be outside fighting wars, or I'll be living in the forest and associating with the sages. Basically, he liked a very simple, humble life. So he did not spend much time in the palace. And his brother got the chance then to sit on the throne and enjoy the royal luxury. But Pandu was okay with that. Years passed on in this manner, and when they both became of marriageable age, then Dhritarashtra was married to Gandhari, who belonged to actually the dynasty from Afghanistan. And Pandu Maharaj was married to two ladies. One of them was Madhuri, the younger one, and the elder one was, that's for you to answer, who was the elder wife of Pandu, the first wife of Pandu? That's a pretty simple question. Thank you so much. Yes, the answer is Kunti. So Kunti was the elder wife of Pandu, and now there was a kind of competition between these two families. Dhritarashtra, because he was elder, he was praying that his son be born before Pandu gives birth to any male child, so that his son gets a chance to become the next king. He was praying for it very hard, but somehow or other it didn't happen. The first child born in that family was, or in that whole kula, was Yudhishthira Maharaj. And after that, Duryodhana was born. So in this way, Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, they had 100 sons, of whom Duryodhana was the eldest, and they had one daughter whose name was Dushala. Whereas Pandu and Kunti gave birth to 3 male children, and Madri gave birth to 2 male children. So that those were the 5 Pandavas with Yudhishthir the eldest, Bhim, Arjun, Nakul, Sahadev. Now you know the story ahead. Legally, it's Yudhishthir who should have become the king. But because Yudhishthir was of very young age, like you know, even in the present times, if a boy whose father has died and left behind a huge legacy for that child, big bank balance, lots of property, that child, until unless he comes to the age of 18, cannot become the uh, complete independent owner of that property. Till that age, there is a caretaker who takes care of that property. Similarly, because Yudhishthira was so young, for time being, Dhritarashtra was made the caretaker king. That you just take care of the kingdom. When Yudhishthira becomes old enough, then you pass on the throne to him. However, Dhritarashtra's eldest son Duryodhana, he strongly wanted to be the king. He was like, why should Yudhishthira be the king? It's my right. I should be the king because my father, he is elder to Yudhishthira's father. Of course, my father was born blind, but that's his problem. Why should me lose the right to be the king just because my father is born blind? So Duryodhan from the very childhood hated the Pandavas. He did not like them at all. He was envious of them and he tried many ways to kill them. You know, so many different ways, poisoning them, trying to burn them in a house made of lac and wax, and so many other ways they tried to torture them. Ultimately, some negotiation happened, and Dhritarashtra said, I'll divide the kingdom into two parts. One part is for Duryodhan, the other part is for Yudhishthira and his four brothers. In that also, Dhritarashtra was unjust. He did not divide it equally. He gave Duryodhan the flourishing part of the kingdom, and he gave Pandavas a barren land where no one lived, nothing happened. But Pandavas were so virtuous, so hardworking, and so blessed that soon their Indraprasth became more opulent than the Hastinapur. This again made Duryodhana very envious, and he said, I want their property again. So then they arranged for a gambling match in which they would stake their property, and the person who wins will be the owner of that property. Of course, initially it was decided it will be just a game, nothing more than a game. And because Dhritarashtra had personally sent the message to Yudhishthir, feeling obliged that my senior, my superior is asking me to play this game, he agreed. Now you know the story, Shakuni, a great player of the dice, he tricked in the game, and somehow or other Pandavas they lost the match, the gambling match, and because of that they had to go to the forest, and in the forest they had to live in exile and incognito. So now I ask you all, our viewers, for how many years Pandavas were sent to exile, and how many years they lived in the incognito? Incognito is the period when no one should be able to identify you and find you. If you are found during that period, then the condition was again another 12 years of exile and again one more year of incognito. So it was a very, very, very clever play that Duryodhan and Shakuni had played with the Pandavas, that some other will find you and then whole your life you'll be just living in the forest. So yes, I'm waiting for your answers. Okay, thank you so much. The correct answer is 12 years of exile and 1 year of incognito. Yes. Somehow the 13 years completed and the Pandavas are back and they are asking for their kingdom. So at this point, Duryodhana says, no, I'm not going to give back any kingdom. At this point, Lord Krishna told the Pandavas, you have to fight because there's no solution seeming to be there. Yudhishthira said, let's try for the last time. We don't want to fight. We don't want to kill millions of people here just for this small decision. Let us go to Duryodhana and request Duryodhana, because we five brothers are Kshatriyas, we need to rule over some piece of land. Just give us 5 villages. So Krishna became the messenger of peace and he went to meet Duryodhana and his brothers and his father, and he proposed, give Pandavas these 5 villages. No war, no enmity, that's all. Duryodhana did not agree even for that. He said, I will not give you a land which can hold the pin of a needle. Means that much also I cannot spare. So please go back. Then Krishna said, oh, war is certain now. We must fight. That's how the two armies of Pandavas and Kauravas assembled in this land called Kurukshetra to fight. Fight for justice, fight for dharma. The battle is going to begin. The two armies are standing opposite to each other. Millions of soldiers there. The sun has just risen above. And at that point, somehow or other, something happens. That's where the chapter 1 begins. It starts with actually a question. From whom? From Dhritarashtra. But before we go to the question, let me tell you, some people think Kurukshetra is a fancy imagination place. It's not so. Let us see the map. Kurukshetra is a place which is very old, and just like now it is present, we know it's on the northern side of Delhi, the capital of India. This land was there even 5,000 years ago. So you can see in the map, you go towards north from Delhi, it's a drive of a couple of hours. So you reach this place known as Kurukshetra. When you look at the old map, it shows that this land used to lie between two rivers, Saraswati at the top and Drishtadvati at the bottom. And this land of Kurukshetra was surrounded by these two rivers. In that land, at a specific place known as Jyotisar, Lord Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna under a banyan tree. If you go to that place now also, you'll find that tree. That's what they say, the locals saying. Before the war was going to begin, the Pandavas, along with their dear friend Lord Krishna, were strategizing. Yes, like before you play a match, football match, cricket match, any kind of sport, you need to strategize. Similarly, before this war, they were strategizing. How are they going to fight? Now, something for us to know, very interesting, like you can see in the diagram here, there are formations, the army formations. One is circular in shape, and the other has the shape of a thunderbolt, Vajra. So let me check with you in Sanskrit, what are these formations called? These are formations of soldiers or army on the battlefield. So what are these formations called? What is the technical name for these formations? This is a tough question, right? Not so tough. Uh, these formations are of different types, and they are specifically known as, yes, correct, vyuha. These are known as vyuha. So there would be different kinds of vyuhas in which the armies would stand, depending on what vyuha is arranged by the opposite army. And the most interesting thing which I was amazed to read in Mahabharata was these vyuhas were not a static, formation of the soldiers in a shape. Actually, just like giving an example, if one side of the army is arranged in the shape of a snake, then the other army will be arranged in the shape of a bird, because these two are enemies of each other. Now, what would happen is that when they would move, they would not break that formation. Even while moving, they would maintain the formation. And if you get a chance to look at these armies from the helicopter view, you would see that one army is exactly moving like a snake, and the other army is exactly moving like a bird. Now, just imagine what kind of training they would go through to maintain that formation. In the modern times, when we see people dancing in a very nice choreographed fashion, or battalions doing march past, we are amazed. Their hands are moving in the same speed, in the same way, their legs are moving, and you are like, oh my God, what a nice choreography. But here, millions of soldiers, they are fighting, and they are still able to maintain the vyuha. That means they were so talented, so self-controlled, so disciplined. So we are talking about people of that caliber. So then what happens is, sorry, not the question now. So it begins with the question. That's how first chapter of Gita starts. Dhritarashtra Uvacha. This is the only verse Dhritarashtra has spoken in the entire Bhagavad Gita. And he begins or opens the Bhagavad Gita. So he says, Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yuyutsavaha Mamakaha Pandavaschaiva Kimakurvata Sanjaya. He had a secretary whose name was Sanjaya, and he's asking his secretary a question. Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjaya, after my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled in the place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, desiring to fight, what did they do? This question seems so simple, but it is not. This question reveals the mind of Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra was a very crooked person. He was not that simple as he looked like. And in his mind, he's actually going through a turmoil. Lots of different kinds of thoughts are coming and going. And he's going through, you can say, a churning of emotions is happening in his heart, because totally different and opposite kinds of thoughts are coming to him, and he's not able to reconcile them. So at that moment, when Dhritarashtra was sitting and asking to Sanjaya, what did my sons and the sons of Pandu do on the battlefield? The great scholars about Gita, the great teachers about Gita, they comment, they say that Dhritarashtra was having four kinds of emotions going on inside him. And Sanjaya, being a very close secretary of Dhritarashtra, could understand his mind, could read his mind. And in the whole Bhagavad Gita, Sanjaya very expertly discloses to Dhritarashtra what's going on in his mind and what's the answer to his questions. So first of all, Dhritarashtra has a desire. Please try to hear it attentively. Dhritarashtra has a desire. What is the desire? The desire is whether the battle happens or does not happen, Kauravas, his sons, should win. Then he has a doubt. What is the doubt? The doubt is that Pandavas are very strong, they are very virtuous, they are expert at fighting, and they are supported by Lord Krishna. So Pandavas will win because they are virtuous. Battle will happen, and it's the Pandavas who will win, not his son. So he has a doubt. And the third is he has a fear. What is the fear that he has? His fear is Kurukshetra is a holy place. Now, you know, when you go to a holy place, a person becomes affected by those vibrations. Even a person who is wrong or bad in character can become transformed in a holy place. So Duryodhana was bad. His whole set of, you know, team members were actually on the wrong side. Dhritarashtra thought, maybe if they all go to Kurukshetra or they are in Kurukshetra, Kurukshetra may influence them and they may become good people. And then they may go to Yudhishthir and other Pandavas and say, brothers, we don't want to fight with you. Why create so much of havoc? Let's just negotiate. You take half of the kingdom, we take half of the kingdom. Let you be happy, let us be happy. So Dhritarashtra did not want any kind of negotiation, and he was afraid because of the influence of the Holy Land, his sons would change their mind and negotiate. Which means we can understand Dhritarashtra was very adamant that the war should happen. He was not so bothered whether his sons die or not die, but the war must happen. And finally, Dhritarashtra had a hope, a false hope. What was that hope? He was thinking that because Kurukshetra is a holy land, perhaps the Pandavas, when they reach Kurukshetra, they will be, influenced by Kurukshetra, and they may become so renounced and detached that they may tell Duryodhana, come on, we don't want to be king. We'll just want to go and live in the forest. You be the king. We are anyway a very nice king. So he was having that false hope that Pandavas will not fight, and Duryodhana would thus become the king without even fighting. Now you can imagine, if so many things are going on in the mind of a person, how much disturbed that person would be. Sanjaya could understand that. We have a big lesson to learn from this whole episode actually of Dhritarashtra asking this question to Sanjaya. We are in this chapter trying to understand the mindset of these personalities and what lesson we can learn from them. So from Dhritarashtra, we learn this lesson, which is very essential lesson, and that lesson is that material attachment. Dhritarashtra was very attached to the royal throne. So the material attachment causes anxiety and makes one blind to dharma, duty, or religion. Dhritarashtra had become blind. Not just he was physically blind, but he was also spiritually blind or morally blind. He had forgotten what is his duty at that time, what was his dharma, by just because of his undue attachment to his own sons, specifically Duryodhana. Now, how attachment or misplaced attachment can be so unhealthy and dangerous is explained through this story, which I'll tell you. It's a real story. It's a real incident that happened a couple of years ago. It was published in the newspaper that in a station near Kolkata, a man uh, got on board a train, and because he did not have a seat, he was sitting next to the toilet. Two more people got on board, and they brought a trunk with them. They kept the trunk there, and then they were talking to each other, and then they got down. So this man saw them getting down. The train started moving, and these two people did not come back. So the man was wondering, maybe they got up in the train in a different coach, and they are talking to their friends, or they're busy and they'll come back soon and take care of their trunk. But they did not return. Hours and hours passed. So this man assumed that these two people who owned that trunk, they got down from the train and they missed the train. He started looking at the trunk with greedy eyes, and he was thinking, this trunk looks very nice. If they don't come back, perhaps I can take this trunk with me. So that night, he slept on that trunk. In the morning, when he was supposed to get down at Gaya, which is a junction in Bihar, he thought, since they have not returned, let me carry this trunk with me. He started carrying that trunk. When he was coming out of the station, the police stopped him and asked him to open the trunk to show what it contained. Now, this was so bad. When he opened the trunk, they found that it had a dead body. Yes, it was a real incident. It came into the newspaper. And now this man was like, oh my God, where in what have I put myself? He was perspiring, his heart was beating so fast. And the police asked him, what is this? And he was now trying to explain the whole story. Actually, it's not mine. I just stole it, or the owners did not come. He put himself into a mess. And why? Just because he got attached to that trunk in a couple of hours. Dhritarashtra was heavily attached to the throne, and because of which he had become blind, just like this man. So we learn from Bhagavad Gita right at the beginning that this kind of attachment is very, very unhealthy. Anyway, Sanjay understands, and Sanjay is now going to address Dhritarashtra's question. So the way Sanjay answers Dhritarashtra's question is that Dhritarashtra asked this question in 1.1. What did my sons and the sons of Pandu do? So Sanjay explains what did his sons, which means the sons of Dhritarashtra, the Kauravas, do in the verses 2 to 13 of this chapter. And then he explains what did the sons of Pandu, especially Arjuna, do in the verses 14 to 46 of this chapter, and it goes on till the last verse of 18th chapter. That's how the whole Bhagavad Gita is structured. Dhritarashtra's question, Sanjay's answer. So first 12 verses he narrates what did Duryodhana and the party do, and then later on what did Arjuna and the party do. First of all, Sanjaya removes Dhritarashtra's fear. What was Dhritarashtra's fear? That my sons should not negotiate. right? So Sanjaya tells Dhritarashtra, my dear king. Of course, he doesn't say so, but indirectly he means so. He says, my dear king, just like you are blind, your son is also blind. He's not going to change. Don't think because he's in Kurukshetra, holy land, he's going to become a good man immediately. He will remain the way he is. So he says, Drishtva tu Pandavanekam. So he says, just by looking at the arrangement of the army of the Pandavas, Duryodhana immediately went to his commander-in-chief Dronacharya and addressed him, said to him something. What did he say? We'll see that in the next slide. So actually, Duryodhana had seen that the Pandavas had brought a huge army with them, much more than his expectation. In those days, the armies were counted in the figure of Akshauhini. For those of you who do not know, one Akshauhini means a group. And in that group, there are four kinds of warriors: those who are riding the chariot, those who are sitting on the elephant, those who are riding the horse, and those who are foot soldiers. So the chariot warriors or fighters are 21,870. Equal number of elephant riders, 65,600 horse riders, and 109,650 foot soldiers. You add all of these, and that makes one Akshauhini Sena. In the Mahabharata war, 18 Akshauhini Sena fought with each other. Yes. So now the Kauravas, they had brought with them 11 Akshauhini Sena. And the Kauravas were 100 in number. Pandavas were just 5 in number. If you, of course, you must have studied ratio and proportion in your school days in mathematics. So Duryodhana was thinking, we are 20 times more than the Pandavas. So our army should also be, at least theoretically, 20 times more than that of the Pandavas. So if we have 11 Akshauhini Sena, Pandavas should bring not more than half Akshauhini Sena. But his mathematics failed. Why? Because he saw that the Pandavas, instead of bringing such small army, they brought a huge army. They brought 7 Akshauhini. And he was like, my God, how could the Pandavas get such a huge army? They were living in the forest. They could not contact anyone. And he became afraid. But he had to do something. So immediately, being a big politician and diplomat, he could not show his fear to others. So he suppressed his fear, and he immediately went to his commander-in-chief Dronacharya, and he wanted to, unload his stress upon the commander-in-chief. So he started speaking to his commander and said, Pashyatang Panduputranam, look at them. These are your own students, and they have come to fight against you. Look at them, they're so ungrateful. So in this way, he was actually trying to make Dronacharya angry. And then he started pointing out the names of the soldiers on the other side, the strength of the opposite army. He was like saying, there's Bhima there's Arjuna there's Virata there, and there are so many other Atirathi and Maharathi, so many great fighters are there on their side. Look at them. So when Duryodhana was speaking like this, what happened is that his own army was getting a bit demoralized. And he was thinking, oh, that was not a very good step. My own army is becoming discouraged. So immediately he changed the topic, and he told his commander-in-chief Dronacharya, it's not just that they have powerful warriors. We are also not less. On our side also have many great warriors, starting with you. Then we have Bhishma Pitamaha, we have Karna, we have Ashwathama, we have Kripacharya, we have Vikarna, we have so many of them. So I am not afraid. Our commander-in-chief Bhishma Pitama is so experienced. And Bhima, is just like a baby in front of Bhishma Pitama. He cannot survive in front of Bhishma Pitama. So in this way, Duryodhana tried his best to encourage his own army people or soldiers. But what Duryodhana did in this whole scene has an important lesson for us to learn. What was that? When Duryodhana saw that the Pandavas brought a huge army, he started blaming his own teacher that it's all because of you. If you would not have trained them in military science, they would not be standing here on the battlefield and fighting against us. So it's your problem, it's your fault. You did the biggest mistake in the past. So the lesson we learn from Duryodhana is when we do not have humility and tolerance, we start blaming others in a fearful or frustrated state. Duryodhana could have also taken the responsibility on his head. But instead of blaming himself, he's blaming his teacher. It's because of you there that we are in problem now. So we learn from Duryodhana not to be like him. So when Duryodhana was talking like this and trying to encourage his own army men, Bhishma Pitama, who is on the side of Duryodhana, he understood the mentality of Duryodhana. And just to encourage Duryodhana, he took his conch shell and sounded it like a lion. Then Bhishma, the great valiant grandsire of the Kuru dynasty, the grandfather of the fighters, blew his conch shell very loudly, making a sound like the roar of a lion, giving Duryodhana joy that we are ready to fight. That was the signal. We are ready to fight. The battle can begin now. So here I have a question to ask you that when Bhishma Pitama sounded his conch shell, the other soldiers and warriors in the army, they also started playing different musical instruments. Some were playing trumpets, some were beating on the drums, someone were playing horns, someone were playing conch shells. So I have a question to ask you. It's a warfield, it's a battlefield. So why in a battlefield these different musical instruments are being played? Let's see what's your answer to this. Why I put this question, because once a person was mentioning that Bhagavad Gita seems to be a mythological book, because why would someone play musical instruments on a battlefield? It doesn't make sense. But actually, it does make sense. There was a purpose to playing these instruments. So let's hear from you all why they would play instruments. Okay, the answers are coming: to encourage, to motivate, to signal, yes, to inform, yes, correct. So you see, it was a huge battle, and the battlefield was spread across miles and miles. You cannot speak out someone's name and call someone. If you want to tell something to someone, you would use signals. So sound was used as a signal. So in that way, they passed on information. They communicated with each other. They celebrated. They motivated each other. In that way, those instruments were used. So it's completely actually acceptable that yes, on the ground, battleground, they were having these instruments. Just like when there's a sports game, then they're cheerleaders and they're playing instruments to encourage the players. Likewise. So now the Kauravas, they have given the signal, we are ready to fight. The battle can begin. At that moment, Sanjaya shifts the spotlight from the Kauravas and takes it to the Pandavas, and then begins to describe what Pandavas did on the battlefield. He starts with he starts with Arjuna and Lord Krishna. Through this, he is strengthening the doubt of Dhritarashtra that you have a doubt that your sons will not win. Actually, it is so, your sons will not win. So he's kind of strengthening that doubt. Now, here we'll learn a very important lesson from Sanjay. I'll come to that soon, but let's look at the shloka that Sanjay said. He said, 14th number verse, Tataha shvete hayir yukte महति स्यन्दने स्थितौ माधवः पाण्डवश्चैव दिव्यौ शङ्खौ प्रदद्मतुः. I love this verse because behind this verse is hidden a very important lesson. You see, when Sanjaya described the sight of the Pandavas, specifically that of Arjuna, he said that they were seated on a horse driven by white horses. So they were seated on a chariot driven by white horses. And that chariot was great chariot, a huge chariot. And in that chariot stood two personalities, Madhava and Pandava. Pandava here refers to Arjuna, And Madhava here refers to Lord Krishna. The lesson here is when Duryodhana was describing the strength of the opposite army, if you noticed, Duryodhana took everyone's name, but he missed out on one name. What was that name? Okay, let me make it more simple for you. On that battlefield of Kurukshetra, who was the greatest man present? Or greatest personality, not man, but greatest personality present on that battlefield of Kurukshetra? Who was that person? What was the name of that person? Waiting for you to answer. Krishna, yes, Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna was the greatest person. So when Duryodhana evaluated or did the survey of the opposite army, he did not take Krishna's name. He said Bhima is there, Arjuna is there, Virat is there, Drupad is there. He did not take Krishna's name because he thought he definitely saw Krishna. He was just standing in front of Arjuna, but he thought, Krishna, oh, he's useless. Anyway, he's not going to fight. So what will he do? He's useless. So he did not even consider thinking Krishna as a strong figure there who is going to be playing a leading role in deciding what will be the outcome of the battle. But when it comes to Sanjaya, when he begins to describe the other side, the side of the Pandavas, he first of all calls the name of Lord Krishna, that on their side, the first person he sees is Lord Krishna. Now, this is a lesson for us to learn, that how a devotee of Krishna or a good person sees, and how a non-devotee or someone who is not a good person sees. So you see, Duryodhana did not notice Krishna, but Sanjaya did. The lesson is a person of divine nature sees the Lord, God first, and relies on the Lord the most. Right? So a person who has divine nature will see the Lord the first. Duryodhana was not of a divine nature. So though Lord Krishna was present, he could not see. But Sanjaya could see because he was of divine nature. That means in our life also, we should try to see the hands of Lord Shri Krishna in every situation. That's what makes us a devotee. That's what makes us a divine person. So they started blowing their conch shells, transcendental conch shells. Lord Krishna blew his conch shell known as Panchajanya, Yudhishthira known as Ananta Vijaya, Bhimasen known as Paundra, Arjun known as Devadatta, Nakula known as Sughosha, and Sahadev known as Manipushpaka. And many other soldiers on their side, warriors, they also started blowing their conch shells. And what happened was, the sound was so huge, so tumultuous, that it shattered the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra. When the sons of Dhritarashtra had blown the conch shell, nothing happened to the Pandavas. But when Pandavas blew the conch shell, oh, Dhritarashtra's sons were so demotivated because Pandavas were super confident. The conch shell sound showed that they were so confident because of the presence of Lord Krishna on their side. And the Duryodhana and his army could feel that these people are really, really enthusiastic and strong, and it shows that they are in very high spirits. So that means they have chances of victory. So Sanjay is trying to tell Dhritarashtra that, my dear king, now also it's not very late. If you want, you can call this battle to an end. Stop it right now. Just send one order and negotiate between them so that no one dies or millions of people don't lose their life on this battlefield. Sanjay is trying his best, but Dhritarashtra is also adamant. He's not going to change. So in this way, this was explained. Now, the last thing which is covered in this section is on the chariot of Arjuna was a flag, and on that flag there sits a personality. So I'm going to ask you this question: who sits on the flag of Arjuna? Definitely the answer is visible on the screen, but just checking with you if you can identify it or notice it. So what symbol or which person sits on the flag of Arjuna? Yes, the answer is Hanumanji. Thank you so much. Our audience is very, very actively participating. I'm thankful to all of you. Now, anyone knows this is a tricky question, and it's a surprise question which I'm asking. So you'll not see it on the screen also, but let's just see how many of you know. Who sits on the flag of Duryodhana? Right, just like Arjuna has Hanumanji. Whom does Duryodhana have on his flag? The living entity Duryodhana has on his flag very much resembles Duryodhana's own nature. Shani. Yes, so the right answer is snake, Sarpaha. Snake is known for being very envious, and Duryodhana is also very, very envious. So then Sanjaya says, now this is where the whole story begins to take a turning point. When Arjuna observed the army on the other side or saw, he said something. Senayorubayor madhye ratham sthapaya mechyuta yavadeta niriksheham yotu kaman avasthitan kairmaya saha yodhavyam asmin rana samudyame. So Arjuna is making a request. He's addressing Lord Krishna as Achyuta. He's saying, oh my dear Lord, I know you are Supreme God, you are Achyuta, but somehow that you have become my chariot driver. So I cannot give you an instruction or order, I can only request you. My request is, please take my chariot and put it in the middle of both the armies. I want to be standing between the two armies. And Krishna, if he asks, what will you do there? Arjuna says, I want to see, I want to do a nirikshan, I want to make a survey of who all have come to fight here with us. Means how much bent they are upon fighting. I just want to see there. So you know the story actually, how Lord Krishna became the chariot driver of Arjuna. I'll quickly tell you that story. That when it was decided that this war would happen, Duryodhana approached Lord Krishna to get his help. Even Arjuna approached Lord Krishna to get his help. So Lord Krishna was sleeping on his bed, and Duryodhana entered. He saw that the Lord is reclining. So he went and sat on a sofa next to the Lord's head. Arjuna also came after some time. He saw that the Lord is reclining. So then he sat at the feet of Sri Krishna, waiting for Lord Krishna to wake up. After some time, when Lord Krishna woke up, he saw Arjuna. So he said, oh, Arjuna, when did you come? Such a pleasant surprise. And he embraced Arjuna and started speaking very sweetly to him. At that time, Duryodhana told Krishna, I am also here. Please give some attention to me too. And Krishna, oh, Duryodhana, you are also here? How come? What brings you here too? And Duryodhana says, well, you know, the battle is going to begin soon, and I have come here to ask you for help. Krishna said, yes, I knew you would come. So I think Arjuna also has come for the same purpose. Now, because I saw Arjuna first, I'm going to give Arjuna a chance to choose first. Duryodhana said, but I came first. And Krishna said, that's fine, but I saw Arjuna first, and Arjuna is younger to you. So the younger person should get the chance first. So he told Arjuna, you ask, what do you want? I give you a choice. On one side, it's me who is going to be there with you as a guide, but I'm not going to lift any weapon, I'm not going to kill anyone, I'm not going to fight. I'll just be there as a guide. And on the other side, there'll be my army, which is known as Narayani Sena, one Akshahoni. They are undefeatable, no one can defeat them, and that is there on the other side. So you can choose either between me or my army. At that time, Duryodhana was thinking, Arjuna should not ask for that one Akshahani Sena. And Arjuna said, my dear Lord Krishna, I don't want your army, I just want you. Krishna said, are you sure? I'm not going to do anything there. Arjuna said, wherever you are, that's where our happiness is. So just you be with us, that's all I want. Krishna said, okay. Then he turned around towards Duryodhana and said, my dear brother, you see, Arjuna has chosen me. So the only thing that is left for you is the army. Please take the army and go. Duryodhana kind of a little sad. Of course, he was not sad inside. He was just showing that he's sad. He said, what to do now? I don't have any choice. I have to somehow other manage with the army. Anyway, Arjuna, good luck, you have Krishna with you. And inside, Duryodhana is so happy, he's laughing, he's thinking, what a fool Arjuna is. Krishna not lifting any women, then he's a useless person. And he chose a useless person and he gave away the army to me. Anyway, my good luck. And then he left from there. So this is how Krishna became the chariot driver of Arjuna. And Arjuna asked him, can you please put my chariot in between the two armies? Krishna does so. He takes the chariot and puts them between the two armies. So Sanjaya narrates that Eva Mukto Rishi Kesho Gula Keshena Bharata. And then Krishna could actually take the chariot of Arjuna and put anywhere. The whole battle formation was quite wide. The soldiers were standing for miles and miles and miles. But Krishna strategically took the chariot of Arjuna and placed it right in front of his gurus, Bhishma and Drona. Bhishma, Drona, Pramuktaha, right in front of Bhishma and Drona. So now my question to all of you is, why did not Krishna do so? He could have taken the chariot anywhere, but he took it and placed it right in front of Dronacharya and Bhishma Pitama. So what's your answer for that? This time the answer is coming slow. Okay, someone says to take blessings. Someone says to make Arjuna emotional. Yes, thank you so much, Erica Wilson. Yes, that's the answer. He wanted to make Arjuna emotional. He wanted to make Arjuna emotional so that he could preach the message of Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. This whole setup is for us to get the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna is just the medium. Krishna is using Arjuna so that Arjuna becomes weak, emotional, decides not to fight, and then Krishna can speak the message of Bhagavad Gita. So there Arjuna saw all his family members, brothers, sons, sons-in-law, fathers-in-law, and then brother-in-law, uncles. Everyone there on the battlefield was known to him. In fact, Lord Krishna told him, you wanted to do a survey, Arjuna? Let me tell you, everyone here is your own family member, is your own relative, is a friend to you. Looking at this sight, Arjuna became very emotional. He was thinking, what? We all who are relatives, we are here ready to kill each other just for some piece of land? And became so sad. So sad. So that's where Arjuna then begins to raise his concern and give arguments why he thinks the battle should not happen or why he thinks he should not fight. Very important section for you to understand, because here Arjuna raises the questions and Krishna in the later chapters will answer these questions, will resolve those doubts of Arjuna. So first reason which Arjuna gives to not fight is that he says, Drishtvemam swajanam krishnam yuyutsum samupasthitam sidanti mama gatrani mukham cha parishusyati. He was in great distress, great distress. And the first reason he gives to not fight is compassion. How can I kill my own family members? I love them dearly. So I don't want to fight with them. I don't want to kill them. This quality is only manifested in the heart of a kind and selfless soul. It cannot be manifested in anyone. Only a person who is very kind in nature and soft-hearted and selfless can have the quality of compassion. So Arjuna was feeling that. And then Arjuna showed some symptoms which were of fear based on affection and attachment to one's family members. One example of that symptom of fear is his body was trembling. Now, can you give us some examples? When a person is very afraid or frightened, what symptoms are seen in his body? Tell us some symptoms of fear. Okay, our audience is taking a long time to answer this question. I already gave you one hint. The body starts trembling. Okay, one becomes confused, yes. Unable to speak, yes. Perspiration, true. Goosebumps, mouth dries, yes. You cannot sit at one place and do something. Choke threat, you forget everything. You start shivering, unable to think, mind stops working. Very true. You may even faint, right? So these are the symptoms of extreme fear. And Arjuna was going through all of that. His body was trembling, his mouth was drying up. He was also um, having his hairs stand erect. Then his skin was burning because of the heat in his body, extreme perspiration, and his mind was reeling. He was not able to focus on anything. Actually, he was going to faint or fall down unconscious. That bad was his situation. Imagine such a strong person, such a great person. We heard in the last session how heroic he was, right? What wonderful qualities he had. Such a strong person has become so weak now. So that's his first reason to not fight. Then the second reason he gives is na cha shreyo anupashyami hatva swajanam ahave na kangshe vijayam krishna na cha rajyam sukhani cha. So he says, what good are we going to get by killing our own people? Krishna said, oh, if you kill them and you emerge victorious, then you will have the kingdom. And if you have the kingdom, you'll be happy. And Arjuna says, I don't want such victory. I don't want such kingdom. I don't want such happiness. What is the use of such happiness if it is at the cost of killing your own family members? With whom are you going to enjoy? So he says, I don't want to fight because I don't see any good result out of it. All the people we want those things for are the ones standing on this battlefield. So his second reason to not fight is loss of enjoyment, loss of happiness. He says, Krishna, you are telling me I should be able to enjoy the kingdom. Enjoy with whom and for whom, right? Actually, you enjoy wealth with family. You enjoy anything with your close, near, and dear ones. You cannot just enjoy by yourself. So Arjuna is saying, we'll be happy, but with who will be left behind to share that happiness with us? So what's the point of that happiness? It's not needed. I don't want that happiness. Then next reason he gives to not fight is papamevashayedasman hatvaitanatatayinaha. He says, are we that greedy that for wealth we will kill our own people? Arjuna is saying, come on, Lord Krishna, we cannot go so low in character. We cannot become so greedy that just for little wealth, we are going to kill our own family members. And Krishna says, but you know, they are aggressors. They have tried to harm you, they have tried to be unjust towards you. So you should take revenge. And the scriptures allow that. If your own family members are trying to harm you, kill you, then you can definitely take revenge with them, punish them. This is what Manusmriti says, that it is allowed to take revenge with such people. So here, Krishna is telling they're aggressors. In Sanskrit, it's called atatai. Atatai. We know from Mahabharata there are different kinds of atatais, 6 in number, and what they are or who they are. Any one of you remembers, if you have studied Bhagavad Gita or Mahabharata, you would know what are the 6 kinds of aggressors whom can be killed without any punishment or without any sin. If they have tried to kill you in the past or harm you, you can kill them, right? So let's see if you know what are these 6 kinds of aggressors. Give some examples. Okay, we have one who sets fire. Very good. Thank you. One who sets fire. One who gives poison. Thank you so much. Yes, that's also the correct answer. Anything else? One who burns the house, correct. One who takes one's property, true. Yes, so the six kinds of aggressors are given is one who gives poison. Bhima was given poison. Then one who puts fire to your house, one who seizes your land, one who tries to attack you with harmful weapons. Then one who steals away your wealth, or one who kidnaps or abducts one's wife. These are six kinds of aggressors. Even if they are your family members, they should be punished. That's what Manusmriti says. So Krishna said they are aggressors. And Arjuna said, yes, they are aggressors. I agree. But then they are not ordinary aggressors. They are my own family members. So how can I punish them? I cannot. It will be very, very sinful to do that. So Arjuna's third reason to not fight is I fear sin. They are greedy, Krishna, I agree. But I cannot be greedy like them. My intelligence is not corrupted by greed, isn't it? So his third reason to not fight is I'll go to hell. Dharma Shastras don't allow to fight or kill one's own family people. Therefore, I don't want to fight. Fourth reason. कुलक्षय प्रणश्यन्ति कुलधर्म सनातनः धर्मनष्टे कुलं कृत्स्नम् अधर्माभिभवत्युता. He says, when this battle would happen, there will be a great havoc in the society. Why? Because all the great Kshatriyas, elder members of the family would die, and no one will be there to guide the younger generation, protect the younger generation. Kula dharma will be destroyed, Jati dharma will be destroyed, the society will become so irreligious, and that will lead to complete social destruction. More than that, those people who need to be protected in a civilization, the children, the brahmanas, the old people, the women, they would not get protection. So, in that case, why should we fight? This battle doesn't seem to be leading us to the right direction. So, these were the reasons that Arjuna gave to not fight. Now, from these reasons, we understand something very, very essential. That's the question that I want to ask you. He gave 4 reasons in this chapter. He'll give the 5th reason in second chapter to not fight in this battle. The first reason is material compassion. The second reason is loss of enjoyment. The third reason is fear of sin. And the fourth reason is destruction of dynasty. So when you hear Arjuna's reasons, what do you understand from about Arjuna's character? What kind of person is he? I request the participants to comment in appropriate manner here. When you are attending a session, stick to the points being discussed in the session and respond accordingly. Otherwise, you can go somewhere else and write whatever you feel like writing. So here, what do you understand about Arjuna? Yeah, he was kind, he was compassionate. What else? What else do we understand? He was confused, definitely true. What else we understand about his character? That is an important lesson to learn, because Arjuna is going to become the student of Bhagavad Gita. So we need to understand his mind also. He is a very dharmic person, very true. Okay, so the answer that I'm looking for is actually he is full of good qualities. He's endowed with many virtues. It's not that he's saying, today I don't have the mood to fight, aaj mera man nahi kar raha hai. No, he's not saying like that. But he is giving very good logical reasons to not fight based on his knowledge and experience. The lesson we learn is when a person develops the attitude shown here by Arjuna, he becomes eligible to receive the help of the Supreme Lord or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yes. Why Arjuna became the student of Gita? Because Arjuna had this attitude. And when we also study Bhagavad Gita with this attitude, or we live our life with this attitude, we can actually understand the message of Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, in Bhagavad Gita as it is, about which I spoke yesterday, the most authentic version of Bhagavad Gita available on the planet. In the last chapter, in the last verse of the first chapter, in the purport, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada writes, he says, such a kind, referring to Arjuna, such a kind and soft-hearted person in the devotional service of the Lord is fit to receive self-knowledge. Self-knowledge means knowledge of the self, Atma Gyan, which Lord Krishna will speak in chapter number 2. So only such a person who has such a heart can understand self-knowledge. So Arjuna now is so sad, so miserable. He's saying, Aho bata mahat papam. He's saying, what big sinful activity I was thinking of doing. They are my dear ones, they are my near ones, they have done so much for me, and I was thinking of killing them. Just the thought that I should kill my family members, my grandfathers, my teachers is so sinful that I should now pay a price for committing that sin. I want to atone for that sin, do prayaschitta. And what was the prayaschitta that he wanted to do? He told Lord Krishna, they should kill me unarmed. I'm not going to shoot any arrows. I'll just stand here like this and let them kill me. Let them shoot the arrows on my chest and let me die. That would be the right atonement. In other words, he wanted to commit suicide. He was so sad, so miserable. And he was feeling, how could I even think of fighting with these great personalities who are my gurus? So, speaking like this, he sat down on the chariot, completely lost, completely weakened. So, Sanjay ends the first chapter by saying to Dhritarashtra, Evam uktva junas sankhe rathopastha upavishat visrijya sasharam chapam shoka samvigna manasaha. That in this way, Arjuna, in the middle of the battlefield, he kept his bow and arrow aside and he sat down on the chariot with his hand on his head and he was crying, completely overwhelmed with sorrow. This is where the first chapter ends. Now you can start sending your questions to us. Please make sure your questions are based on what we discussed today. We'll be able to address only those questions. Now I'll quickly revise or summarize what we discussed. This chapter is called Arjun Vishada Yoga, Yoga by Lamentation. Yes, lamentation is the key to remember, and it comes in the section about the self, the first 6 chapters. Quick 5 lessons for you to take away, and of course for me to take away from this chapter. First lesson. This chapter teaches us what qualities a student of Bhagavad Gita should have. Only when one has qualities of Arjuna can one understand Bhagavad Gita. That's what we learned from lesson 1. Arjuna had some specific qualities we discussed. That's what is needed to be in us if we really want to be a good student of Bhagavad Gita. Then next quality, that lesson, we learn from here is don't blame God. Arjuna is Krishna's friend, personal friend, very close friend. And Arjuna is now in such a troubled situation. But Arjuna is not blaming Krishna. Krishna, you are God. I'm your best friend. Why am I in this situation? Why my life is like this? So many people, when they get into problem, they go to Krishna or God and say, why me? You could not find anyone else to do this too. You found me to do this too. Why me? So Arjuna is not blaming Krishna. He's not blaming God. He's not blaming others. He's taking the responsibility on his shoulders. That attitude is very much needed for one to be open-minded to receive knowledge. When we play the blame game, we become disqualified for the real knowledge to enter into our heart. So we have to come out of this attitude for the knowledge, real knowledge, to seep into our heart. Then the third lesson that we learn here is conflicts. Yes, very important point. Don't be surprised if you have conflicts in your life. Don't be surprised if you have conflicts in your life, even though you are a devotee or you are a good person, you are a moral person, you do good to others. In this chapter, we learn even great personalities like Arjuna, Yudhishthira, they had conflicts in their life. See, if they had conflicts, why won't we? It's natural to have conflicts in life. Just because you have conflicts in your life or challenges, don't think you're on the wrong path. or you are doing the wrong thing. Even while you are doing the right thing and you are a good person, there will be challenges, there will be conflicts, but we need to keep our enthusiasm on and we can rise above those conflicts. That's what this chapter teaches us. Fourth thing, this Bhagavad Gita begins with actually a negative energy of Arjuna being so morose and low in spirit. But in the end, that Arjuna is so positive, so high spirited. He says, Karishe vachanam tava, oh Lord Krishna, now I'm charged up. Now I know who I am. Now I know what's my purpose. Now I know what's my duty. I'm ready to do it now. He was so strong, so confident. So Bhagavad Gita teaches us how to use our negative situations, our low state of mind, as springboard to rise high into the sky and use that as an opportunity to grow in life. That's what Arjuna is doing here. Through this Bhagavad Gita, we understand Arjuna is starting from a very low state, but at the end of Gita, he reaches the highest state of consciousness, of thinking. So Bhagavad Gita teaches us that you can use negative situations in life as a springboard to rise to higher states of consciousness. And final lesson, which I like so much, when we tell people, please join Bhagavad Gita Diploma course, please read Bhagavad Gita for some time every day, they say, no time, we are busy, we just have 24 hours and we have so many things to do. But here Bhagavad Gita is teaching us, Arjuna was on a battlefield. Every single second counted. In 1 second, the throat would be chopped, the head would be chopped off the body and he would die, which means he was in such an emergency situation. He did not have single moment to wait. But in that very, very emergency situation, when time was so precious for him, he took out time to understand Bhagavad Gita. We don't have that kind of situation in our life, that we are facing life and death, right? If Arjuna in a battlefield can take out time for understanding Bhagavad Gita or hearing Bhagavad Gita, why can't we take out time for hearing and understanding Bhagavad Gita in a busy life? It is possible only when we understand the importance of this message. So that's why Gita was spoken on a battlefield, because we are being told the message is so important that even if you are on a battlefield, you must take out time for it. That's how spiritual life is. It's a very important, or actually it's the most important thing that one must take out time for. All right, thank you so much. Now let's start taking your questions. Quickly, what did we discuss in this chapter at a glance? We started with the question of Dhritarashtra. Sanjaya spoke about his sons in the verses 2 to 13. Then he shifted the spotlight to Pandu's sons, Arjuna, Krishna, and the other Pandavas. So he talks about the signs of victory of Pandavas in the verses 14 to 20. Then he mentions that Arjuna requested Krishna to put the chariot in between the two armies, and Krishna did so. And finally, Arjuna's four logical reasons to not fight this battle. Let's take your questions now one by one. First question coming on the screen. Very nice question from Kirthana. Guruji, how can we be like Arjuna? Wow. Thank you so much for asking such a beautiful question. How can we be like Arjuna? To be like anyone, we need to follow some steps. First of all, you meditate on that personality. Whatever we meditate upon, or whoever we meditate upon, we start imbibing the qualities of that person. So let's meditate on Arjuna. Let's read about Arjuna from Mahabharata. Let's hear about Arjuna. That will help us. Second step, we should pray to God. We should pray to Lord Shri Krishna to help us develop those good qualities. You want to develop good qualities, you meditate on them, you pray to Lord for help. And third, by studying the scriptures, you understand what those good qualities are, and you practice emulating those qualities in your day-to-day life. So practice being more kind, practice being more compassionate, practice being more soft-hearted, practice being more forgiving in nature. In that way, by practice also those qualities are developed. All right, thank you so much. Next, another person asking similar question, how to develop these qualities. I just answered that question. Next, what if we fear getting ahead of our relatives? I'm so sorry. The question is not very clear to me. What if we fear getting ahead of our relatives? What does it mean? How can we relate this chapter to our life? We give you so many lessons, not just one lesson, so many lessons. Our situation is so many times like that of Arjuna. Don't tell me that in your life you never went through confusing times when you were disturbed, you could not decide what should be done. You are in dilemma. You had to choose between two options where both the options seem to be correct and you are lost. So any such situation, then your situation is like that of Arjuna. And actually in this world, most of the days we come across such situations. So this chapter is very relevant to us and so many lessons we can learn from this chapter, which we already shared. Pallavi Singh ji. Where will we get the lecture of day one? On the same channel, in the same playlist, you'll get the lecture of day one. Next, how to respond to relatives like Duryodhana in today's world. Yes, times have changed, so we'll have to find different ways to deal with them. Now, there cannot be a specific answer to this question because there has to be a specific situation for me to know, because when you say such relatives, it's a very generalized way of presenting the situation. What kind of relatives? Like such means what, and what exactly those relatives are doing to you. Only when we know that can we give you a very specific answer. Otherwise I can't give you a very specific answer that how to deal with such relatives. But we can say in one sense that we have to also deal based on what the current scenario is, what the society allows, what are the rules made by the government. So many things are there. But the best thing in any situation is that at least you should keep yourself safe and not allow those people to harm you physically, mentally, or any way. And how do you do that? When you become spiritually strong, the negative vibrations of people around you don't affect you much. Rakesh Kumarji, why Arjuna not go to his Guru Drona for his confusion and weakness? Because Arjuna has Lord Krishna in front of him, and Arjuna is going to now ask Lord Krishna for help. That will come in the next chapter. Vinayak Upadhyay, how can one develop qualities like Arjuna? We already discussed that. Just go a few minutes back into this recording or into this session and we'll get the answer. Ishika, why did Krishna make Arjuna more emotional? Because Krishna wanted Arjuna to raise his doubts so that Krishna can speak the Bhagavad Gita for Arjuna's benefit and more than that for our benefit. Dinanath Singh ji, what is the nature of self-realization? Very nice question. Chapter 2 will describe that in detail. So let's wait. Chapter 2, chapter 5 talks a lot about it. Priya Bhatia ji, can you explain the meaning of shloka number 42 from chapter 1? I'm so sorry, actually. This course doesn't allow us to get into detail of every single shloka because each shloka needs a class of 60 minutes. So if you want to know this shloka or any other shloka in depth, then you can go to my channel with the name Madhusudan Vishnu. There I have given lectures on every single verse of Bhagavad Gita, starting from verse number 1 to verse number 700, and we cover in great detail each of those shlokas. We did explain that, so you can go to my channel, subscribe there. You'll find playlist on Gita lectures both in Hindi and English, and you'll find the answer to your question. Next question. Why Lord Krishna did not teach Duryodhana a lesson even before a war to start? Duryodhana was taught many lessons actually. It seems you never read or heard Mahabharata. There were so many lessons that Duryodhana got to learn, but he did not learn. He was so adamant. So now he'll learn only by losing his life. That's the only way he's going to learn. So that's why he's in the battle now, to fight and lose his life. Why Krishna gave Gyan in youth and not Dwapar beginning even for Kauravas? Why he was visible as God only to Arjuna and not others? It's not because of Krishna that he was visible as God to some and not to some. It's because of them. They had certain consciousness because of which they were not able to see Krishna as God. let's know one thing, that though Krishna is all powerful and is the supreme personality of Godhead, the living entities, they also have a choice to either accept him as God or not accept him as God. So if they don't accept him as God, it's their problem. And just because they don't accept him God doesn't mean that he is not God. All right. So Lord Krishna, he has given that freedom to all the living entities, that you can choose to surrender to him, not surrender to him, accept him, not accept him, believe in him, not believe in him. So Duryodhana is playing the role of a demon, doesn't believe in Krishna, doesn't believe in God. Krishna does not discriminate between his own kids. It's the kids who have a certain kind of attitude, and because of which they get a certain kind of reciprocation. But that's what they want. If they want to become a devotee, that option is always there. Okay, how to control the anger? Chapter 3 will discuss that. In a material world, Arjuna had a best friend, Sri Krishna, but whom we take a friend in bunch of false gurus. If you think that there are false gurus in the market, in the society, then there are also true gurus. They may be less, but you can find them. Just like there are so many false doctors in the society, but there are also true doctors. I'm sure you also must be having some occupation or profession. So in your area of profession also, there would be people who are cheaters, but it doesn't mean that you also are a cheater. You might be a genuine person. Similarly, in any area, you find false people and true people. So, similarly, in spirituality or path of spirituality, there are true gurus. You can approach them for guidance, and you can also approach even Lord Krishna for guidance by studying Bhagavad Gita as it is. Lord Krishna will guide you through the book. What to do when your mindset mismatch with your relatives? Again, a very, very abstract question. You have to tell me a specific situation. How do we learn to develop patience? By understanding that everything is not in our control. We have to give up that ego or controllership mentality, that things will happen at their time, because we are not moving things. The nature is moving things, time is moving things. So have patience. When the time comes, that thing will manifest in our life. Next question. What do you mean by meditating on Arjuna and Krishna, and what is meditation exactly? Meditation means you read about those personalities, you think about the qualities they have. That's called meditation. If we are compassionate and kind like Arjuna in today's world, who will guide us like Krishna in life's journey? We'll study that in the next chapter, also in chapter 4. Krishna mentions, just like when Arjuna was in problem, he approached to a guru for help. Similarly, we have to also approach a spiritual teacher for help. How can we choose a real Gita as it is? It's already chosen, it's already there. You just get it, read it, you'll understand that yes, this is real. You know, how do you know something is sweet? By eating, you come to know it is sweet. How you know something is salty? By eating it, you know it's salty. Similarly, how do you know something is right or wrong? By experiencing it. So you can try buying 2,500 editions of Bhagavad Gita and reading them individually and then find the real Gita. Or if we are telling you that this particular Bhagavad Gita is read by millions and they have found that this is, yes, very, very genuine. So you start reading that Bhagavad Gita and see for yourself if it's genuine or not. What's the reason for the snake on flag of Duryodhana? Well, that you have to ask Duryodhana. Why he kept a snake on his flag, you should ask him. And why Arjuna kept Hanumanji on his flag? Because Arjuna, he's a devotee of Lord Krishna, and he is thinking, just like Hanumanji fought for Lord Ramachandra, let me follow in the footsteps of Hanumanji and fight for my Lord, Lord Shri Krishna. Next, how to learn each shloka? You mean memorize? Okay, for that also you can go to my channel, Madhusudan Vishnu on YouTube. I have 80 videos on guided memorization of shlokas, both in Hindi and English. Watching those videos, you can learn how to memorize Sanskrit shlokas. Why did Bhishma or Drona did not have any confusion like fighting with Kinsey? That's a very good point. So that's what we are trying to understand here. Duryodhana is not thinking like that. Others are not thinking like that. Why is Arjuna thinking like that? Because he is a person who has such a nice character. Not everyone is same. So he is thinking like that because he is different. And because he is different, he has been chosen to understand the message of Bhagavad Gita. We should know one thing, that when we study these scriptures, they present a plot. Why they present a plot? So that those plots then can bring real life lessons for people to learn and apply in life. Arjuna here is acting as a perfect candidate to understand Bhagavad Gita. So if you want to understand Gita, or anyone wants to understand Gita, one has to have those qualities. Otherwise, Gita's message will be very difficult to understand. Why Duryodhana was so ignorant about Lord Krishna? Because of his demoniac nature. So Sushil Sharmaji, thank you for the questions, all of you. And this is the last question that we'll take for today. Why don't all souls surrender to Lord Krishna? It's their choice. It's their choice. It's their freedom. Although it's demonstrated that everyone is part and parcel of him. Yes, that's true, but they don't accept. Just like, let's say, a father and mother have 5 kids. Not all 5 kids will love them equally, though they might have taken care of all those 5 kids equally, fulfill all their desires, send them to good school, brought them up, did everything. But then one of those kids may say, I don't care about you, I don't accept you as my father and mother. So that's his choice, that's his independent mentality. Similarly, though Krishna is the father of all living entities, some living entities choose to be devoted to him, some choose to not to be devoted to him. That's their problem, that's their choice. And yes, all can be liberated from sufferings if they surrender to Krishna. That's true, but they don't, right? All right, we'll stop here. Thank you so much. It was a wonderful session today with all of you. We end it here at this slide. Now we'll meet you again tomorrow. We'll be starting our next chapter, which is chapter number 2. A bit philosophical, the second longest chapter in the script in the book, but we'll try our best. Thank you so much.